This is a great episode with Justin Kamm. He is an ex-venture capitalist turned into blueberry farmer. And quickly after he bought his blueberry farm, he realized he needed another income stream. So he decided on domes, glamping domes. And now I think he's one of the most sought out hospitality destinations in the Catskill Mountains of New York. Today we talk about how he went from 0 to 100, so how he started from scratch and built his blueberry farm called North Star Farm. If he could go back 12 to 18 months, what is one thing he would do differently? And finally, if he was standing in a room full of small town farmers, what is one thing he would say to help them grow their farm business and, in most situations, finally become profitable? This is an excellent episode with Justin Kamm. If you like short-term rental content and you have a short-term rental, an Airbnb or a hotel, and you want more of it, every week, every Thursday at 5:45 Central Standard Time, go to the link in the description and sign up for my free newsletter. That's where the best content is. All right, let's get to the episode. The main idea of this episode is to essentially teach a listener or a viewer how to take a traditional farm like you did into a thriving agritourism destination. And I think the best way people can understand how you did what you did is to understand where you came from. And where you came from is a very white collar job in New York City. How did you go from that profession to blueberry farmer and hospitality host?
Yeah, that's a story. I spent 15 years in venture capital. I worked at a family office where we would get pitched on businesses all day long. And so my job was to kind of sort through the pitches and meet people and distill from all of those pitches what might be a reasonable investment for us. And that looks different for a lot of investors, right? But for us, it was, we're what I would call active investors, activist investors. And so I probably saw 1,000 deals a year, and we'd pick one, and we'd do one deal a year. There are a lot of venture capitalists who kind of have a mandate or a strategy, and out of those 1,000 deals, they might do 100, and we call it spray and pray, right? And so you have money and you spread it around a lot of different investments. That wasn't us, because we like to find something and then really dive in, become a part of the management team, sit on the boards, help make strategic introductions, and help grow the business alongside management teams, right? And so doing that for 15 years, we did about 15 direct investments just like that. And once we made the investment, I would dive in and I'd sit along, chief operating officers and chief financial officers and chief executive officers, and I'd talk to them every day, and I would try to see where I could add value. And after doing this enough times, what I understood about business is that all business is really the same. You have a product or you have a service, and that's what makes it unique, that specific product or service. But all the infrastructure around that is almost identical across any kind of industry and any kind of business, right? And so the finance and accounting of it, the marketing and the sales of it, the operations of it, they all kind of follow the same rules and the same formulas for success, right? And so when I came across, back up, the reason I left doing that was a health issue. And so my family and I found ourselves in a moldy home situation during COVID, and we all had COVID, and we all got very sick. And eventually we figured out that it was this biotoxin illness, mold in the home. And it really hit me very hard. And to the point where I was essentially bedbound for 2 years. And I was kind of forced to stop working because I couldn't anymore. And so I had no choice but to kind of leave the finance world. And it was a big struggle. And this is about 5 years ago, and I'm still recovering, and I'm still not completely healthy. But when you go through something like that, something tragic, where it changes your perspective on the world, on work, what's important to you, what you value, and it kind of puts family at the forefront. And what I realized was that my job was a contributor to my health situation, right? I was super stressed. I was traveling all the time. I was trying to do these deals and make investors money and make these entrepreneurs successful and looking after everybody but myself, right, and my family. And so my children were young at the time, and I realized I wanted to be more a part of their life. And so when I started thinking about what's next, am I going to go back to finance, keep doing what I was doing? I decided it just wasn't feasible. And it's not the lifestyle I wanted anymore. And I wanted to put my family first and make my family a part of whatever I got involved in. And however we made a living, we didn't do it as a family, right? I had the luxury of doing that, I think, and I'm not going to, pull punches, but I was successful, right? Like I made some money and I had the cushion to be able to do that. And thankfully, when I got sick too, to be able to afford, doctors and care for myself and my family, to get through that in one piece and to be able to kind of transition to where we are now. And so in late 2023, I was getting to the point where I was thinking I could start doing something, start working. And part of this lifestyle change was, I was living right outside New York City in this very busy area, which was still go, go, go and stressful from a daily lifestyle standpoint. My wife and I decided we needed a place we could get away to get out of the New York City area. And we started looking for, maybe a little cabin to get away to on the weekends, made a number of trips to upstate New York. It was an area we liked, kind of the Catskills Mountains area. And eventually we came across this blueberry farm. And it was a little further than we were looking and not the kind of more land than we were looking for. And but we decided, hey, why not go look at this? It looks like a fun day. We'll go pick some blueberries and check out this land. But from the moment we set foot on the land, we kind of fell in love with it. And we tried to picture ourselves there and decided, we could see ourselves doing this every day for the rest of our lives. And so we decided to make the move. We sold our house in New Jersey. We moved up to the farm. It's a 75-acre blueberry farm. And it was a beautiful piece of land that had been really neglected for several years. The bushes that were planted 12 years ago when we bought the place, but it looked like they had been there for 3 years. I mean, they just really hadn't been taken care of. And everything was overgrown, and the land required a rehabilitation. And one of the parallels I drew that I thought was interesting was to kind of our health situation and to the condition the land was in, right? We were trying to rehabilitate ourselves, rehabilitate our lives, and then we came across this piece of property that was kind of in the same situation, right? It was lacking all the healthy inputs it needed to thrive and be successful. And so the parallels in taking on that project were something that were impactful for us as well and really spoke to us. And so we came into this thinking that we were going to continue the operation as is, the way the farm was operating. So they were growing about 40,000 pounds of blueberries a year. They were taking some portion of those blueberries, harvesting them, and selling them wholesale to grocery stores and other places like that. The financials that the owners provided to us were what I found out was falsified. This was not a surprise to me. Having evaluated businesses for many years, I've seen this many times over. So it was not unexpected. But I didn't think, they had claimed things like they were doing $400,000 a year in revenue, and it was actually zero, or like, 10,000. It was de minimis.
Jeez.
So it was like nothing. It was a complete lie and a complete falsehood. And I accepted that as possible worst case scenario coming into it. And so I wasn't completely shocked, but we were starting from scratch, right? And so there are a number of reasons why farming, and I'm not going to get into why farming is incredibly difficult in America today and around the world, but the business model doesn't work, right? Essentially, you're growing this crop. It's like any other commodity business. There's nothing that makes unique. A lot of other people grow blueberries. And so the people who buy the blueberries down the line, grocery stores or whoever, are just going to pick the lowest price provider, right? And so it's a race to the bottom. And so if it costs you $2 to pick a pound of blueberries and we grow 40,000 pounds, it doesn't take a genius to figure out the math. It costs us $80,000 to grow 40,000 pounds, but then we can only go sell them for $3 a pound to the grocery store. So that's $120,000 in revenue. So you're left with a margin of $40,000. And then you still have costs in between there, right? So you're barely breaking even at the end of the day when you grow a crop and you sell it. And the system is designed that way. If you talk to a soybean farmer, a wheat farmer, a corn farmer, a dairy farmer, it will cost you X to grow it, and the companies who buy it know that it costs you X, and they're going to charge you Y to buy it, right? And so you're inevitably left with 2, 3, 4, 5% margins on the net at the end of the day, and that's why farmers, in a broad sense, are struggling to survive, and why farms are disappearing, especially small farms in America today. And so quickly realized that farming was not going to be the business, right? But we have these beautiful blueberries. They're amazing. What do we do with them, right? And so we had to figure out a different path. And I quickly came to the conclusion that the people who were running successful farms were the ones who were creating experiences for people. People were coming to their farms. They were destinations, right? And we use the term agritourism, agriculture and tourism. It's maybe a misnomer in some ways, but the ability to have a relationship with your customer and to know them is the advantage that small farms have over larger farms, right? Big corporate larger farms are just looking for economies of scale to create some kind of margin to create a living. And small farms can't compete with that because they can never achieve the economies of scale. And so they have to do it in a different way. And the advantage they have is to know the customer, right? How do you bring the customer to your farm? How do you get them to purchase not only your crop that you're growing, but other experiences they crave? People are craving experiences and to know their farmer, to meet the animals, to stay on the farm, to learn about the history of the farm. That's all valuable things that that you can provide a customer as a small farm. And so I think the best way to do this is through, for farms in particular, is something we call farm stays. So creating housing on the property where people can come stay and experience daily farm life, right? It's like Disney World in some ways. And my wife hates this. If I had this place and it wasn't for my wife, I probably would have turned it into an amusement park by now because I see the opportunity. But it's essentially a theme park in some ways, right? But more grounded and more relevant to people's daily lives, right? Learning where your food comes from, being integrated into nature, like a healthier way to live. All of these things are things that appeal to people, especially today. People are becoming aware that of the quality of the food that they're eating these days, of toxins in the environment, of how stressed they are, about how important it is to rewire your nervous system and become more grounded. And as people learn more about these things, as the world goes a certain way, people are craving experiences like the ones we offer, right? And so we started building an experience that we thought we would enjoy, right? We're not just throwing up tents on our property. I wanted to create an experience that was more of a high-end experience. So it's not camping, right? I wouldn't even say it's glamping. It's almost like we're building like a little boutique hotel on our property, right? Every unit that we built has a full bathroom, a kitchenette, high-end linens, cookware, spices. We have, everybody gets a grill. They have their own personal wood-fired hot tub. It's and set on a hillside with beautiful views. And it's very peaceful. And we don't have Wi-Fi. And that's part of the charm of the place. It's the idea is you're going to come here to disconnect, to immerse yourself in nature, and to understand that there's a better way to live, basically, because that's what we found, and we wanted to share our experience, our lived experience, with other people, and that's the core of it.
Between when you found and bought the blueberry farm and when you realized that it needed domes, like what was that timeline? How long did that take?
So, blueberry harvest is in the summer, in July and August, and when we bought the farm, it had a full-time farm manager who lived on the property and who was salaried, and bought it at the end of the year. So we basically, around the New Year is when we started to kind of engage, and April's kind of the time when things start growing, right? And so that's when we start spending money, basically. The farm manager had his own way of doing things with, it's a certified organic farm, but like copious amounts of organic fertilizers. And we were kind of relying on his expertise in the beginning because, like I said before, I know how to run a business. I know all the infrastructure around it, but I didn't understand the product yet. I didn't understand how to grow blueberries, how to farm things, how to sell them, how to distribute them. So I started trying to brush up and learn all these things, but I relied on the farm manager for the farming part, right? Like, you just make sure, I told them, just make sure you grow the blueberries, make sure they grow, and I'll handle everything else, right? And so every week he was asking for more money for this piece of equipment and more money for this fertilizer. And, oh, I got to hire 2 more guys so they can help me with this. And then when the harvest comes, we got to hire 4 more guys so we can harvest all the berries. I'm like, whoa, wait. Like, where are we selling the berries? I don't even know where we're going to sell the berries. Why are we going to harvest the berries if we don't have a customer to buy the berries yet, right? And so I spent like 3 or 4 months probably just spending money and getting ready for the blueberry harvest. And I'm like, kind of like just sat down one day. I'm like, why are we spending all this money? It makes no sense. Like, I don't have any revenue coming out the back end of this. And so then I started doing the math and, realized that there were no customers that we inherited. So I had to go build my own, and that's a heavy lift. And I started going out trying to sell to local groceries and things. And I'd say, we want to sell them for $8 a pound. And I got laughed out of the room, right? And I buy from this guy for $3.50. I'm like, well, ours are certified organic, they're hand-picked, and they don't care, right? They need to make their margin because their customer buys it at $6, so they want to buy it at $3 and make their margin. If they buy it at $8, they're not making enough money to make money themselves. So by the time, kind of late spring, early summer rolled around, so call it 6 months, I had settled on the domes. I knew there needed to be a change, and there's different iterations of what you can do. But I thought, for the return on investment we get from building the domes, and where we needed to be in order to make a living as our full-time family business, the domes were just what made a lot of sense.
So you bought the farm and you essentially had your oh shit moment pretty quickly, and it just took you a little bit to figure out what that added thing was going to be.
Yeah, and I think, given the previous experience I had working in finance and helping other people build businesses allowed me to get there very quickly, right? And there are farming families who have been doing this for generations, right? And they've seen this coming, and they take out loans and they pay them back, and they take out loans and they pay them back, and now they're on like the 4th generation. Their great grandkids want to take over, and they're choosing different professions, right? And they don't want to be farmers because they see the struggle that their parents and their grandparents went through, because the business is brutal. And they don't think that, a very small percentage think about how they can save the farm and preserve that legacy. And they don't know how to make that happen. And so they go off and do something else, and the farms just get sold off, and the subdivisions get created, or the land gets used for something else. And so it's kind of a sad state of affairs, but I would contend to anybody who owns a small farm that there are plenty of other options, if you are interested, where you can kind of pivot and create a different kind of farm, defend your family's legacy, and create a thriving business for yourself and your family.
Do you have a framework on how, like, if somebody came to you and was just like, I'm in the same situation you were, Justin, 2 years ago, do you have a framework that you would share with them to help them get from essentially a losing money plot of land to you, which I'd imagine the business as a whole is profitable. The domes are obviously profitable, independent of the blueberries, but I'd imagine the blueberries are profitable too now as a standalone product.
They are. Yes. So installed a U-pick operation where people can come and pick their own berries, which we don't have to harvest them. There's no labor involved. Cut out all kinds of fertilizers. Figured out how to grow the berries just using water and sun. And they're better than they were with the fertilizer just by taking care of the soil and cultivating the ecosystem. And I do have some clients who will buy a few thousand pounds in a year. We freeze them instead of selling them fresh. So fresh ones have a shelf life of 2 to 3 days. Frozen ones have a shelf life of 12 to 18 months. So we store them. They will come to the farm, pick them up in the trays that we store them in, and take them. And that's a good margin business. So I don't pick a berry unless I know I can sell it, or if somebody's going to come harvest it themselves. And so yes, the blueberries are profitable. But in terms of to your question of, do I have a framework? Yes, I have a framework that I've developed in my head over 15 years, right? You can apply it to any business. And it's the steps I used to take my management teams through when I was helping them grow their businesses in other industries. I applied that here myself. I created a course which I think will be helpful for anybody who's looking to kind of get started and identify what those possible paths are, and then how to get started on those paths. Anybody can go to farmexperienceblueprint.com. And that's a course that I put together. It's 4 modules. It's 12 lessons altogether. Basically, it takes you through how to identify the opportunities specific to your farm, how to express your vision for what you want the farm to be, how to navigate common challenges that you may have, whether it be zoning or permits in your area, or if you're close to a city or away from more than a few hours from a major metropolitan area. How do you design that experience, set up the infrastructure? How do you automate it? How do you market it? How do you create a funnel to get people to aware of your farm and then convert them into customers? What other possible revenue streams you can cultivate using your farm and the equipment you have? How to optimize your operations, and then how to scale beyond that, how to measure your success. And so it's kind of all those things, which are standard to any business, that also apply to your farm business.
If you had to, not even if you could, but if you had to go back 18 months, what is 1 to 3 things you would do differently?
I think I've said this in every business I've ever been involved in. But I would trust my instincts. It's number one, right? I smelled something off, and it took me 6 months to actually make a pivot, right? And you're spending money in that time, and so be more ruthless, right? Trust your gut, trust your instincts. When you smell something is off, do something about it. Don't just sit on it and wait and let it happen and let it fester, right? That's kind of number one.
And the thing that you smelled was off was that the farm manager wanted to keep eating your bank account, but you had no way of getting it back. That's what you're saying it was?
Yeah, and I don't blame him. He was young and inexperienced. He knew how to farm a certain way, or he was taught. He doesn't know how to run a business, right? So it's not his fault. Yes, there's 2 reasons I found over my 15 years building businesses, doing venture capital, that businesses fail. Number 1, they run out of cash, and number 2, they grow too quickly, right? And so when I see a business that is spending, and not earning anything, it raises a red flag with me. And yes, you could look back at stories of the internet boom, and Amazon's a famous story, right? Jeff Bezos didn't make money for 20 years. But the part that people miss is that the government bailouts, the hundreds of millions of dollars that he went out to raise, the 25 different false starts on his business model that he was able to weather because he was really good at raising money from other people. And he diluted a whole lot of shareholders along the way, early investors who didn't make any money, right? And so people don't see these whole stories, but at the end of the day, your business has to make money. This is not an internet startup where you can afford to lose money for a couple decades and then pull out of it at the end and make $1 billion. Like, that's not how this works, right? You got to be profitable from day one. A lot of these families who are scraping by on very thin margins don't have extra cash laying around, right? They're constantly borrowing every year and paying back banks to fund equipment and other things that they buy to grow their crops. They don't have disposable income laying around to go build infrastructure and make money on their farm.
Like, I almost kind of want to ask you, if I had a farm and I wanted to, make it a tourism destination, how would I do that? I feel like the answer is just build domes and figure out the marketing and the rest will come. Like, I don't even want to ask that question because I feel like we would just be spinning in circles. But that's probably what you would say. Is just like, how do I make my farm profitable? Build domes and maybe get cheap.
I think that's an oversimplification. Yes, that's not a wrong answer. But look, everybody's different, and there's a lot of different variables. And I think you should definitely start slow, start small, and do one thing at a time. Look, there may be, say you're a farm, you're in Iowa, you and your wife are fourth generation farmers, and your wife makes amazing chili. It's her specialty, it's her thing. Every Sunday night, she makes this great crock pot of chili, and everybody in the community loves her chili, and it's her thing, right? Well, this is part of what I talk about in my course, the Farm Experience Blueprint. Identify the assets that you have, right? Your wife is awesome at making chili, and she loves doing it. And why not start with farm dinners or a chili cook-off or something that's right in your area of expertise that you can do really well, and you develop a reputation for doing that one thing really, really well. You have the best chili in all of Iowa. Everybody knows it. You invite other people to come compete with your chili. You charge people $30 to come have a farm dinner. Your son plays in a band. Him and his band come and play at the chili dinner on a Sunday night, and you do it in the middle of the cornfield where you're growing your corn, and that becomes a community event that you do weekly. And all of a sudden, you look back, you're getting 50 people to come at $30 a bowl every Sunday night. You're making $1,500 every Sunday night over the course of a 15-week season. Well, now you're doing something that's a business, right? That's the line of business you want to start with. Now you have extra income. And now you just earned an extra $15,000, $18,000, $20,000 in that season. So next year, what do you want to do? Well, I think we want to host people at our farm. So now I have the extra $20,000 to go build a dome and do it really nice, like not just go buy $1,000 tent from like White Duck Outdoors and stick it out in the middle of your cornfield, right? You build something nice for people. So now you're still doing your chili cook-offs. You have this $20,000 revenue line, but you also built this dome that you charge $150 a night for. It books 200 nights a year, and now you have another $30,000 to play with, right? And maybe you want to buy another dome, or maybe you want to build a commercial kitchen because your wife's chili has become so popular that you want to brand it and you want to package it and you want to go sell it to local retail outlets or online nationally, right? Now you're selling your chili online and you're making another $150,000 because people love the chili, and now you want to build 5 more domes on your property, right? And so you got to start with what you do well, identify those things, and then do it really, really well and execute on it. And then everything will flow from there.
Do you have any other low cost assets that people could start with? Another chili example that you commonly see?
There's a lot. U-pick is great. You're growing your crop. That's found money, right? Instead of harvesting it and spending money to harvest it and sell it for no margin, have people come to the property. And then, by the way, when they're on your property, you can make value-added goods. You can make pies. You can do jams or jellies or whatever else you have on the property and you want to make stuff with whatever you have there, you're bringing people to your farm. Now you can sell them other stuff. And now you're creating brand loyalty because they love all your stuff and they're coming to your chili dinners and they have a date night and they want to come stay in your dome. I can identify 100 different things. Like I can go look at somebody's farm and I'll go tell them the 15, 20 things they could possibly do tomorrow, right? And that's that's like the first thing in the course, right? You have to identify the assets. And so it's what equipment do you own? What grows on your land? Where are you located? And what do you do well? What do you have expertise in? And so anybody can sit down and make that list of 10 to 20 things that they could do tomorrow. I can't tell you, like if you gave me an example or somebody came to me or called me on the phone or sent me an email, I could identify it for them or help them spur those thoughts. But like it's endless, you know?
Yeah. So for your for your line of work and for mine too, it's like it depends, but there are some pretty easy ways that people can get started that almost anybody can use.
Yeah.
Okay, so North Star Farm has 4 domes, 1 yoga dome or Zen dome, shared sauna, 4 wood fire hot tubs, and a ton of blueberry bushes with 6 sheep.
7, yeah.
7 sheep.
With
What's
with
next?
very strong opinions about the world. We have a pond, an irrigation pond. This is another good utilization of what you have in your farm, right? So when we bought the farm, there was an irrigation system that was about half built. Whether they ran out of money or time or whatever, I'm not sure. But we needed to complete the irrigation system, and that was key to like being able to grow the blueberries and helping the bushes thrive. They need a lot of water. And it's this beautiful pond. It's just located on this like cool piece of the property with a great view overlooking the mountain. And I looked at that pond and I'm like, oh, we can drop fish in there, right? It's another added amenity for guests who come to stay. So we stocked it with smallmouth bass, and we put a shack down next to the pond with fishing equipment. And so guests that come onto the farm and stay with us can grab a pole and go fish. It's just another activity. So we have a forest area, about 10 acres, that we've kind of lightly developed into a walking trail. There's a library in the forest there, stocked with books, and a little area you can sit with hammocks and little tree stumps and read, or bring the books back to your dome to read. This year we're adding we had a 1 acre meadow in the front of our house, at the front of the property, in between 2 of the blueberry fields that was just grass. And one of the things we've been thinking about for a while is turning it into a flower meadow, right? Just to make it more beautiful. But we have one of the women who works with us, who's kind of the leader of our dome maintenance crew. She kind of helps with the turnover of the room. She makes the beds, cleans the domes after guests leave. Ran a cut flower farm out of her house. She had a little 1/4 acre plot in her backyard, and she does weddings and sells her flowers through a local CSA. And we approached her and said, hey, would you like some more land to do what you do? You want to run your flower farm off of our property? We have this great meadow out front. And so we started talking about that. And so we actually developed a program. It's called the Farmer in Residence Program. So we have all this land. We don't use all of it. And so now we're actively inviting farmers, people who do interesting things in the area, who need land to do what they do. And she was the first one. And so this year we're going to have a U-Pick flower operation, which is her business. But she's going to run courses and workshops for the community and for our guests, like once a month during the season. And then guests will be able to come down and pick U-Pick flowers along with the U-Pick blueberries at a discounted rate. And she gets to run her business. It's good for the community, and it beautifies our farm.
And she pays you a lease too. Going back to the, how to monetize a farm a little bit more. She would pay you a lease, or if
We
she
certainly
didn't work
could do
for you,
that.
she would.
That's not the deal we worked out, but yeah, that's certainly we can certainly rent
Yeah.
out space, and some farms do that right now. They'll kind of rent their land or lease their land for a term to a young farmer who's just getting started to do whatever they want to do. That's a common model. we chose to do it a little bit differently because of our relationship with her and really what we're trying to accomplish.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that if you were sitting in front of a room full of small farmers that you would want to tell them?
Yeah. Farmers in particular, farming's been done the same way for a very long time. New technologies have been introduced which have changed farming, but it hasn't helped the small farmer. And so I just encourage them to think differently, right? Think about their traditional context of what a farm is. And think about modern day. How do you change that farm into something else? Farms can be experiential, and don't shy away from that. You may not be a people person, you may not be an extrovert, and that's fine. You don't need to be. But don't be afraid to experiment and try new things and to incorporate different experiences on your farm that can draw people to your farm. Become experiential. Don't become a commodity farmer. Just think differently.
Justin, if people want to learn more about you, work with you, read the stuff you write, where can they find you?
Best place is to email me, justin@northstarfarm.com. Our Instagram is @thenorthstarfarm, and our website is northstarfarm.com. They can find me in any of those three places, and I would be happy to talk to anybody who's interested in these things and be helpful as I can.
Great. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Scott.